التمتعات بكافة الحقوق والحريات الواردة في هذا الإعلان دون أي تمييز.
The most rich fishing water in the world, and they cannot take part of it. It's a really sad, it's really, it shouldn't be like that.
Le Sahara occidental se caractérise par la diversité de son environnement géologique, ce qui rend son sol très riche en ressources minérales. Pendant la présence espagnole, plusieurs explorations ont eu lieu. Elles ont permis de découvrir des richesses naturelles importantes, comme le phosphate, qui se trouve dans 6 énormes champs, tels que la mine de Bukra, considérée comme la plus grande dans le monde, avec une capacité d'environ 1700 millions de tonnes, ce qui équivaut à 28% des réserves mondiales. Il y a aussi le fer, dont les réserves ont atteint quelques 4,7 milliards de tonnes. Les recherches ont également permis de découvrir de l'or, du diamant, du cuivre, du nickel et d'autres minéraux encore très importants comme l'uranium. En ce qui concerne le domaine halieutique, la côte du Sahara occidental, qui s'étend sur une distance de 1400 km, représente l'un des plus riches bassins au monde en poissons. La côte renferme de riches variétés de poissons, de crustacés et de mollusques. Cette côte poissonneuse permet de pêcher 1 million de tonnes de poissons annuellement. Entre 2000 et 2004, l'exploitation abusive du poisson a atteint 122% pour des rentrées annuelles équivalentes à environ 2,3 milliards de dollars. Le Sahara occidental, contrairement à ce que pensent certains, n'est pas qu'une étendue de sable et un désert aride, ou encore que la genèse du conflit repose sur des raisons politico-historiques uniquement. Cette image typique, ancrée dans la tête des gens, n'est en réalité que l'arbre qui cache la forêt. Derrière ce mur séparateur et ces dunes de sable, se trouve la clé d'un conflit qui revêt un caractère purement économique. Les ressources ainsi que les richesses de cette région occupée sont le principal vecteur des intérêts économiques et commerciaux dont tirent profit d'autres pays étrangers dans la région. Ces mêmes richesses sont à l'origine des souffrances dans lesquelles vit le peuple sahraoui, soumis aux pires massacres et aux violations dans ses droits et le droit à sa terre.
المغرب كذلك استباح العرض وغزا الأرض وطبق سياسة الأرض محروقة من أجل شيء واحد، وهو من أجل التوسع جنوبا، وخاصة فيما يتعلق بالخيرات الباطنية، الخيرات الموجودة داخل الصحراء الغربية. فمن المعلوم أن الصحراء الغربية تزخر بالمعادن كالفوسفات والأورانيوم والنحاس والمنغنيز والحديد، وخصوصا هناك بعض الاكتشافات الحديثة لمواقع بترولية، وبالإضافة إلى الثروة السمكية الهائلة في السواحل.
تستهلك بطريقة هستيرية، ما هي بطريقة عادية ولا مشروعة ولا معروف لها إحصاء.
industry of fisheries in Western Sahara can be divided into different categories. You have the small-scale fisheries consisting of mostly Moroccan fishermen in the towns of Dakhla, Boujdour, Laayoune, employing tens of thousands of people on the small-scale fisheries. They have their small vessels and they do the fisheries and they have their families in this part of Western Sahara. These can be traditional fishermen or people who just learned how to fish. Most of them coming in from Agadir, Casablanca or other parts of Morocco. On another level, you have the multinational agreements between Morocco and institutions such as the European Union or countries like Russia or Korea, Japan, which sign agreements with the Moroccan government to fish in Western Sahara. And then you have a third level, which is industrial fisheries on a non-governmental level. So foreign companies getting licenses to fish in Western Sahara under Moroccan flag.
Norway is dependent on higher and higher imports of fish oil, fat fish. And the sources are, except for what we fish ourselves, Denmark, the US and South America. All this has been known. Then I've wondered for quite a long time on a big import of fish oil from Morocco, which is in the Norwegian trade statistics. There's big volumes of fish oil coming from Morocco, and it is marked as oil for human consumption. And it was too much to be turned into, you know, omega-3 tablets, small tablets you take for your health, but it was too much for that.
What we have been doing is participating in campaigns that our sister organizations in other countries have worked with, and that has an appeal to the Swedish situation as well. It comes with fish, comes with omega-3 fish oil, and it has to do with pharmaceutical included, and of course also vegetables. In connection with a Swedish documentary, we started tracking those boats, see where they came from and where they went in Norway. And this is where we saw that, well, firstly, they did not come from Morocco. They came from Laayoune, from Western Sahara. And Western Sahara has a separate country code in the Norwegian tariff system. So if you buy something, import something from Western Sahara to Norway, it should be marked EH for Western Sahara. It should not be marked Morocco. It's a separate country. And it had the tariff code for fish oil for human consumption. Then we saw that these boats, they went from Laayoune and they came to one factory in Kristiansund in Norway, and it went from that factory and continued to factories, plants that produce feed for salmon. And the importer, the company that imports the fish oil, belonged to the president of the Norwegian Enterprises Association. It was known in Norway that he was trading with Western Sahara. That had been known for several years. What was not known was that this fish oil was used for to produce salmon. And the salmon company had tried to hide this. And the salmon company is it's called Cermaq, and it's 43% owned by the Norwegian state. So the result of this was, first, we see that most of the fish oil produced in the area, the border area between Morocco and Western Sahara. Some factories are on Morocco side, some factories are on Western Sahara side. I believe that most of the fish comes from the Western Sahara side. That fish is transported from
the port in Dakhla, and across the border to factories in Tantan, in Morocco.
Les informations concernant le mouvement des bateaux de pêche dans les eaux territoriales sahraouies, nous avons pu les obtenir de différentes sources.
What we did was to track the boats through satellite tracking, so you can see where the boat is, because all not fishing boats, not small boats, but all big transport vessels, cargo vessels, need to have a satellite tracking system, or a system which communicates through the radio, VHF. So you can see actually where they are if you have access to those receivers. So we saw that this boat came from Lyon, which date. We see that it goes to Agadir, short trip, stop in Agadir, then Fécamp in France, and then on to Kristiansund in Norway, and from there to the factory producing fish feed. And when I saw it, that it had the direction for this factory, I called somebody and they went and take pictures of the boat. And then I start asking the company. So these are the companies that we're talking about. It's KB Fish, which is in Lyon, in Western Sahara. And this is how we track the transport of fish oil from Lyon, Western Sahara to Kristiansund.
Norway supports the efforts of the United Nations Secretary General to find a solution to the issue of Western Sahara. And as the Security Council has expressed, there is no solution without finding some kind of self-determination for the people of Western Sahara. And Norway agrees with that position. In terms of economic activity, Norway finds it very important to not encourage activity which may give legitimacy to the current situation in Western Sahara. Norway therefore discourages businesses to engage in trade or investments or in the use of natural resources in Western Sahara, which may not be in the interests of the local population and therefore may be in breach of international law.
Norway is one of those states, one of those governments which have come with quite clear statements as to this should not take place. So actually the Norwegian government urges its own companies to not get engaged in Western Sahara, not investing in Western Sahara, and not trading with products from Western Sahara. So in a European context, the Norwegian government is quite strong, and at least much stronger than the European Union.
I think that the Swedish government has to be very, very severe in this case, because before we voted no to the fishery agreements as the only country in the European Union. And in this parliament, all the parties are in favor of a no to the fishery agreement with Morocco. So I think that the Swedish government, they have to stand still with the decision they made last time, and they should also try to get other countries to support them in this case.
Of course, we are helped by the fact that Sweden was the last country to abandon its negative position towards the fishery agreement when it was decided 2006.
Malgré la suspension par la Norvège d'importer de l'huile de poisson provenant de la région sahraoui, après avoir adopté une position officielle rejetant ces agissements illégaux, comme l'avait fait auparavant la Suède, Cela n'a pas empêché pour autant la convoitise des entreprises industrielles de recourir à d'autres solutions pour contourner l'interdiction et faire de gros profits.
And then also we see that there are Norwegian boats that may be based in Mauritania, for example, but they can buy quota in Western Sahara, which they buy in Morocco. They pay a certain price per ton. They fish it, and it's transshipped at sea, so moved from the fishing boat to a transport boat at sea. And what they told me is that most of this fish, it goes on this transport boat to Nigeria, which is the main West African market for mackerel, and in a way that is even, I don't know if I've said worse, but that fish never touches Western Sahara at all. You know, the fish that went to fish oil, it was landed in Dakhla and it was produced in Lyon. With this fish, it is transshipped at sea outside Western Sahara and then just sent to Nigeria.
Le poisson du Sahara occidental n'est pas seulement destiné à l'Europe et aux pays de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. L'image de cette étiquette a été enlevée d'un emballage de sardines congelées d'une usine de poissons située dans la région sahraoui de Dakhla occupée. Il est fait mention qu'elle a été produite à Nouakchott en Mauritanie pour le compte d'une société égyptienne basée à Alexandrie.
Yeah, so it's pure extraction of fish resources with nothing left in the area.
We are sending fish to the Sahrawi people, but meanwhile they have their own fish that they cannot take part of at all. And so the Moroccans, they sell the fish to the European Union. Meanwhile, we are sending fish from the government here, like we send it from our organization, but with money from the government, and we give it because they're malnutrition. They have so much malnutrition in the camps, and it's really ironic that they have like the most rich fishing water in the world, and they cannot take part of it. So they get canned fish in the desert where they are. It's really sad. It shouldn't be like that.
En dépit de la clarté de certaines positions européennes officielles ou émanant de la société civile, la Norvège et la Suède rejettent toute forme de coopération avec le régime marocain quant à l'exploitation abusive et illégale des ressources sahraouies provenant des territoires occupés conformément au droit international. D'autres parties européennes, par contre, ne voient pas la chose du même œil. Elles persistent à profiter des richesses halieutiques du Sahara occidental sous prétexte de l'application de l'accord euro-marocain. Et cela tout en profitant du flou juridique dans l'accord pour passer des contrats commerciaux avec le Maroc. Et pour connaître les avis de ceux qui sont favorables à cette position, nous avons contacté quelques parlementaires européens, en particulier les Français et les Espagnols, qui ont, à notre grand étonnement, refusé de nous recevoir, alors que certains nous ont demandé de laisser notre numéro de téléphone, sans bien sûr donner aucune suite. D'autres encore ont prétexté que le sujet du Sahara occidental est beaucoup plus profond que cela et qu'il est préférable de le traiter dans son ensemble, selon leur dire.
El Estado marroquí está explotando esas riquezas en complicidad con la Unión Europea y otros estados para esquilmar la pesca que existe en el banco sahariano, en el banco pesquero sahariano. En el año 2006, la Comisión Europea de la Unión Europea ha firmado un tratado de pesca con Marruecos que no determina la frontera del país con el que se firma, que es Marruecos. Lo que ha ocurrido después de la firma de este tratado es que la Unión Europea y Marruecos han utilizado la ambigüedad de este tratado para pescar en las aguas del Sáhara Occidental. Esto es algo que es completamente ilegal, porque contradice las resoluciones de Naciones Unidas que, repito una vez más, establecen que las riquezas naturales de un territorio no autónomo solo pueden ser explotadas con el consentimiento, la consulta y en beneficio de la población originaria del Sáhara Occidental.
The Fisheries Committee unilaterally agreed on proposing a study trip to go to Morocco and see for ourselves how the fisheries agreement is implemented, because one of the questions is whether or not the well, let's say the money from the fisheries agreement comes to the benefit of the Western Sahara people, the Sahrawi people, and that is the key issue here. And all the political groups wanted to go to Morocco and see for themselves, and also visit Western Sahara. And we issued a request to the Moroccan authorities in December. And now, in the end of May, finally we got a response that they have not got the possibility to receive us in Morocco for the delegation sometime during 2010.
لأنه تم منح هذه الوضعية للمغرب خلال الرئاسة الفرنسية وتم تطبيقه خلال الرئاسة الإسبانية.
Après notre visite en Suède, le seul pays à avoir refusé de ratifier l'accord euro-marocain, notre arrivée dans la capitale norvégienne, Oslo, coïncidait avec l'organisation d'une large campagne européenne du mouvement associatif civil qui avait été lancée en 2006 avec pour slogan « Pêcher le poisson autre part ». Ou encore « Stopper la pêche européenne dans les eaux sahraouis occupées ». Ce mouvement a fini par la signature d'une pétition de pas moins de 560 ONG et un nombre important de personnalités politiques, juridiques et culturelles à travers le monde. Cette pétition sera remise à la Commission européenne en vue de contraindre l'Union européenne à respecter le droit international et l'arrêt immédiat de toute forme d'activité visant à dilapider les ressources sahraouis qui ne fait qu'encourager l'occupation et par la même occasion accentue les souffrances du citoyen sahraoui.
The natural resource in Western Sahara that has created most income for the Moroccan government since 1975 is the phosphates. 1 ton of phosphates has been worth up to $500. Now consider that the production in Bukra in Western Sahara annually is over 3 million tons. That makes that you can calculate quite quickly how much Morocco is benefiting from the production in Western Sahara. At its maximum in 2008, probably Morocco gained perhaps as much as $2 billion only on the phosphate production.
تقادر يعني ميناء مدينة العيون 100 سفينة، وحمولة سفينة واحدة فقط تعادل مجموع المساعدات الإنسانية المتحصل عليها من طرف اللاجئين الصحراويين خلال السنة.
we are a network of organizations and individuals researching and campaigning foreign business interests in occupied Western Sahara. What we try to do is to identify companies and governments active in the occupied territories, and we try to get in touch with them to convince them that what they're doing is ethically and legally wrong. Some companies, when we approach them, reconsider their position and stop importing from occupied Western Sahara. But there are also, of course, other companies that refuse to engage in dialogue. One example that comes to mind is BASF. In 2008, we got an anonymous phone call from someone saying, well, there is this vessel, Novigrad, I think the name was, which is currently in European waters. It comes from the harbor of El Ayoun, and we believe it carries phosphates from the mines of Bukra. So what we then tried to do was to find the boat. It happened to be in the harbor of Ghent in Belgium, where it was discharging 25,000 tons of Saharan phosphates, which were meant for BASF, which is a giant in chemical products. We then contacted the company. At first they refused to give us any information, and then we wrote a few letters to which they responded that according to illegal advice they had, there was no problem at all with the legality of these imports. That juridical advice was drafted by a law firm in Washington called Covington and Burling. Now, what we managed to find out is that those lawyers are paid by OCP, the Office Chérifien de Phosphate, from the Moroccan state phosphate company. And they use that legal advice for their clients in case they get approached by, well, organizations like us to defend what they're doing. Of course, we do believe that this advice has some factual errors because there are numbers of legal concerns with importing from Western Sahara.
There are different aspects of that. The most challenging, of course, is that the Sahrawis don't want it and they don't benefit from it. Most of the Sahrawis that used to work in Western Sahara before 1975 in the phosphate industry, they are not working there anymore. What happened in 75 was that most of the Sahrawi workers were dismissed and then replaced by Moroccan people. So of the approximately 2,000 positions in the industry, only about 10% are supposedly Sahrawis. So most of the people working there today are Moroccans. All the income is going to the Moroccan state phosphate company, and none of the income is going to the majority of the Sahrawis. Each Sahrawi is almost a millionaire, but they don't have access to the resources. And this is basically from the phosphate.
دخلت الشركة في التكوين المهني 68 و900 ورث. تخرجت من التكوين سنة 70.
فاش تكونت؟
تكون الكهرباء.
نعم.
ودخلنا الشركة عام 70 في شهر 1. ودرنا عقد 3 أشهر. فهم ترسميت.
أيوة.
ونشتغل في جانب الشحن. تميت فيه لسنة 75.
نعم.
في شهر 11 وانطلقنا منها.
دخلت شركة فوس بكرة 1972 شهر 7. خدمت في الشركة إلى غاية 1975 دخول المغاربة. كنت نشتغل أيضا ديال كوزينيرو طباخ زاد طيب. كان حكم لي القصب المغربي عن دخوله ودخلت الحبس. قبضوني شهر من الحبس. الاعتقال والضرب الجلد في مكان حبس كان ينقال له الحشيشة. كان أصلا معسكر إسباني سابقا.
وعلى حسب المعلومات اللي أنا عندي كانت على أن إسبانيا اكتشفت مع نجم بكرة سنة 1945 وبدأت بالتنقيب التقليدي. شنو هذا التقليدي؟ تقبض عمال صحراويين تجهر بهم الحسيان، تحدد منطقة المنجم. أذكر بأنه أول باخرة شارجات من فمتها أو انشحنت من فمتها فوتت 48 ساعة، لأنه شين قال له الحزام الناقل هذا ما زال طور التجربة.
That was Senia Abderrahman, who's a young Sahrawi student who is studying in the United States. Also at the same time that Aminatou Haidar received the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award in Washington, several people tried to contact the company at the same time and they refused categorically to engage in dialogue.
المواطنين الصحراويين العزل لا يستفيدون من هذه الثروة. هذه الثروة يستفيد منها فقط المستوطنين المغاربة والجنرالات وما خفية كان أعرف.
Not only with us, also with Sahrawi who have tried to talk with the company stating clearly, I am Sahrawi, I do not benefit at all from business in Western Sahara.
Selon la loi internationale, j'insiste, ces eaux devraient être exclues de l'accord ou au moins il devrait être assuré que l'exploitation de ces ressources bénéficie à la population locale. Ni l'un ni l'autre sont faits. C'est pour ça que nous avons commencé une campagne au niveau du Parlement européen pour demander soit que l'accord exclue explicitement les eaux territoriales sahraouis, soit qu'on justifie clairement que l'exploitation de ces ressources bénéficie à la population locale sahraoui. Et ils n'ont pas jamais fait. Donc c'est pour ça qu'au niveau parlementaire, c'est clair. Nous avons un message à donner. Je dois dire, la conviction dans les groupes est de plus en plus poil dans ce sens. Donc je crois qu'on est dans un moment, disons, un point d'inflexion et il faudra quand même que la Commission et les gouvernements spécialement concernés, c'est-à-dire l'Espagne, la France et les autres, vont comprendre ça aussi.
We have that experience that many companies, but also other governments, like for instance Russia, who also has agreements with Morocco that include Western Sahara. When we approach them and we say, well, this is not legal what you're doing, they refer to the European Union, saying, well, if the European Union is active in these territories, surely it cannot be illegal, it has to be okay. It is not, unfortunately.
لدينا الكثير من المعلومات حول كل ما يجري في الصحراء الغربية فيما يخص هذا ميدان الاستثمارات. طبعا احنا هناك فيه مرصد متابعة نهب الخيرات الصحراوية وموجود مقره في أوسلو، ولكن بالعمل المستمر هذا يعني المعهد أصبح الآن منتشر في أكثر من 30 دولة، له فروع في أكثر من 30 دولة، والمهمة الوحيدة هو مراقبة من القانون الدولي.
Yes, hello, my name is Sahara Occidental from Western Sahara Resource Watch and we are an organization working on foreign business interests in Western Sahara. I was wondering if you were in a position to confirm that you have just received a shipment of phosphates. Well, sources indicate it would be about 25,000 tons of phosphates, well, coming from the harbor of El Ayoun. Okay. Now I'm just calling to inquire because we fear that your company may inadvertently be engaged in a political game and may have, without planning to do so, infringed on international law. Would there be any possibility to discuss this matter any further? Okay.
خاصة على مستوى السويد هناك شركة كبرى يسموها لايف انسحبت من هذا الموضوع واعتذرت رسميا عن ما كانت تفعل، لأنها قالت بأنها لم تكن تعرف. يلاحظ أنه فيما يخص الفوسفات هناك صندوق تضامن اجتماعي سويدي، أكبر صندوق موجود على مستوى المنطقة يسموه فولكسام، كانت له مشاركات كبيرة مع شرائك أسترالية تستثمر في الفوسفات الصحراوي وتشتري الفوسفات الصحراوي بطريقة غير شرعية. ونتيجة للحملة الإعلامية والحملة المكثفة اللي قاموا بها بعض الإخوان بالتعاون مع جبهة البوليساريو في المنطقة، أصبح الآن يعني هذا الصندوق سحب كل أمواله من الشرائك الأسترالية.
وميادين أخرى فلاحة. ربما المرء لا يتصور أن الصحراء كبيداء ليست فيها فلاحة، ولكن هناك فلاحة من النوع الجيد، وأساسا في المنطقة الجنوبية، في منطقة تينيغير وقرب الداخلة، ومن النوع الجيد، لأن الماء ماء صافي وماء معدني من النوع الممتاز، وأساسا بالنسبة للطماطم التي تصدر إلى أوروبا وإلى كندا.
Only the last couple of years there's developed a new industry around Dakhla in the southern parts of Western Sahara, whereby plantation companies have been setting up a huge, mostly tomato industry. This is grown upon water from the subsoil. There are huge lakes under the desert, and of course there's lots of sun. And in these plantations they make tomatoes and some melons. And it could be as much as 6,000 people work now in this industry in Dakhla. The problem, of course, is that these are not necessarily the local people working there, but people moving in to the territory from Morocco. So this is just like the fisheries. This takes part in changing the demographic composition of Western Sahara.
كما انسحبت في الفترة الأخيرة شرائك مثل أكس فود وشركة كوب، هما شركتين سويديتين ونرويجيتين يستثمروا في ميدان الفلاحة ويستوردوا من الصحراء الغربية ومن منطقة الداخلة بالخصوص الطماطم.
These tomatoes are mostly French made. The French companies in Dakhla. And the tomatoes reach basically all the European market and some from recently also to the United States.
فكذلك بعد الاكتشافات وبعد يعني اتصال بهم مباشرة من طرف أصدقائنا قرروا أخيرا في المدة الأخيرة يعني الامتناع الكامل عن الاستثمار والاستيراد للطماطم من الصحراء الغربية ومن المغرب بصفة عامة، لأنه لا يمكن لهذه الشركة أن تحدد ما هي الطماطم الآتية من المغرب وما هي الطماطم الآتية من منطقة الداخل، وبالتالي أصبح القرار يعني جميع أنواع الطماطم من المغرب ومن المنطقة. فهذا عمل له آثار كبيرة على الوضع في الصحراء الغربية، لأنه يمنع انتهاك يعني حقوق الإنسان في الصحراء الغربية وخاصة حقوق يعني الاقتصادية للشعب الصحراوي، ويحافظ على خيرات الشعب الصحراوي. وهذا طبعا الحملة كلها مبنية على القانون الدولي وخاصة الاستشارة القانونية التي تحدث عنها السيد هانس كوريل في سنة 2002.
We have other things like sand. Sand is important for tourists going to Canary Island, and they want the white sand. The white sand is not their natural. It will be. It is being shipped to the Canary beaches and tourists without knowing are walking on Sahara sand.
If we take the petroleum, so far Morocco has not found probably any petroleum in Western Sahara. Still, it's only the potential which is interesting. Morocco is exploring both offshore and onshore. Offshore, there's been oil exploration projects going on since 2002, basically. Gone on and off. It's an American oil company in Texas which is currently looking for oil offshore Western Sahara. If oil is found in Western Sahara, it's very hard to see that Western Sahara might get its right to self-determination. Probably the oil could be the really key part in the conflict once it is found. Then we might see that the self-determination process has been stopped altogether.
The issue of oil, the support committee, together with the international network, we have in fact campaigned very successfully against at least 7 different oil companies that have been working in Western Sahara. And these 7 companies have withdrawn, and they have sort of said, sorry, won't do it again.
Very important for Sahrawi to denounce their situation and clearly state that they have no benefit, that they've never been consulted on anything, and they need to continue to talk about their situation, the human rights situation, humanitarian situation, natural resources. It is so important to get the message across that Sahrawi as well engage in this. It's extremely important.
The first big national campaign that we did in Norway was in 1997, so it's quite a while ago already. We started quite early here in Norway. And after this, we've done several other large national campaigns. Among other things, last year we did a big campaign together, or we helped in a campaign together with the Students and Academics International Assistance Fund, SAI, on the natural resource situation in Western Sahara.
Dans ce contexte, le mouvement de protestation revêt un intérêt particulier et une nécessité pour protéger ses ressources en vue d'attirer l'attention de l'opinion internationale sur ces violations qui vont à l'encontre du droit international. La privation de l'exploitant illégal d'accéder à ces ressources, avec tout ce qu'elles génèrent comme richesse, devrait laisser place à une solution juste et durable au conflit du Sahara occidental.
Have you heard about fishing outside Western Sahara? It's illegal. And we're doing a campaign against the fisheries.
For the whale or something?
No, not the whale, just the EU. The EU is having fishing outside Western Sahara.
L'accord de pêche entre l'Union européenne et le Maroc reste un délaissement flagrant de la part des pays européens de leur engagement moral et juridique quant à la protection des ressources naturelles sahraouies. À travers cette démarche, les pays européens participent directement à la privation du peuple sahraoui de profiter de ses propres ressources et richesses.
فحرب الصحراء وإبادة الشعب الصحراوي المراد منها هو استغلال النهب البشع لهذه الخيرات والاستحواذ على هذه المعادن الضخمة وهذه الخيرات الكبيرة من أجل الإثراء على حساب إبادة الشعب الصحراوي.
نحن نقول لمن يريد الاستثمار أنه تحل مشكلة الصحراء طبقا للقانون الدولي، يمكن الشعب الصحراوي من ممارسته لحقه في تقرير المصير، تستقل الدولة الصحراوية وتصبح ذات السيادة على مكان، ومرحبا وأهلا لمن يريد الاستثمار في ظروف احترام متبادل ومصالح متبادلة.
Le statut juridique du Sahara occidental en tant que territoire occupé est comparable à celui du Timor-Est en comparaison du contenu de la plateforme juridique internationale établie par un panel de juristes internationaux spécialisés. Pedro Pinto Leite en fait partie. Nous l'avons rencontré chez lui dans la ville de Leiden, aux Pays-Bas.
what I can say is this. All these situations that apparently were impossible to solve, all these problems like Namibia, Eritrea, the apartheid in South Africa, or even in Europe, the case of the Baltic states, they are solved. In other words, everybody at that time was saying, also of course the Portuguese colonies, everybody was saying, oh, it's impossible, it's a fair conflict, it's impossible to change. And they changed. And all these people is now free, including East Timor, which was also a so-called impossible case. I have absolutely no doubt that Western Sahara will be free. If it's a matter of 1 year, or 2 years, or 10 years, of course, I hope that it will be 1 year or even less, but that they will be free. They will be free, and that's our work, is to make sure that this will happen quickly.